processing and document review software. We're based here in Austin, and we offer Erin Derby. She's an ACID certified individual and has over 10 years experience as a litigation paralegal. Before we get started, there's some housekeeping rules. You've been placed in a listen-only mode to prevent background noise from interfering with the presenters. In the event you have an issue, please email us at webinars@lexp.com. We'll address the issue right away. If you have any questions, please enter it in the Q&A portion of the web conference interface, and we'll follow up with you after the webinar. To help Erin with some context into what the audience is generally looking for from this webinar, we would like to ask you for your feedback with a couple of polling questions before we get started. First question, are you familiar with your eDiscovery platform's indexing method? All right, we have a few more answers coming in. And I'm going to go ahead and close that poll now. Second question for you guys. Select any of the following search methods you have used when working with eDiscovery. Welcome, and thank you for participating in the Lexp webinar. My name is Frank Krafka. I'm the eDiscovery Solutions Director for the Northeast with Lexp, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. Let me start with a little background information on Lexp. We are an 11-year-old cloud-based provider of DIY eDiscovery processing and document review software. We're based here in Austin, Texas, and we offer one of the industry's fastest ESI document processing and data conversion services. We also handle a vast range of file types, including Macintosh files, Office 360, SharePoint, social media, all email types, and we also provide language translation services. Today's webinar is titled Best Practices to Avoid Missing Key Evidence in Large Document Reviews. We're going to pull back the curtain today on how an eDiscovery platform takes your data and organizes it. By understanding software, engine indexing, and some advanced search techniques, you can minimize the potential for missing evidence. There's no one better to present this information than Lexp's own Erin Derby. She's an ACID certified individual and has over 10 years experience as a litigation paralegal. Before we get started, there's some housekeeping rules. You've been placed in a listen-only mode to prevent background noise from interfering with the presenters. In the event you have an issue, please email us at webinars@lexp.com. We'll address the issue right away. If you have any questions, please enter it in the Q&A portion of the web conference interface, and we'll follow up with you after the webinar. To help Erin with some context into what the audience is generally looking for from this webinar, we would like to ask you for your feedback with a couple of polling questions before we get started. First question, are you familiar with your eDiscovery platform's indexing method? All right, we have a few more answers coming in. And I'm going to go ahead and close that poll now. Second question for you guys. Select any of the following search methods you have used when working with eDiscovery. And a few more answers are coming in. I'll wrap this up now. You should see this results of the poll. Thanks again for your participation. And with that, I'll hand the presentation over to Erin.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about missing key evidence in large document reviews, as you know. So we're going to start out by talking about some modern search and eDiscovery indexing technologies. But before that, we're really going to talk some about general search options that we're using today, how to make your searches more reliable and get rid of junk results, and also talk about some specific indexing gotchas and what's the difference between an image-based OCR index and a native extraction index. And we'll talk about the complexities working with foreign language translated text as another part of indexing, and the way to use optimal search with what's called referred to as a concatenated indexing approach, which means joining the OCR indexing and the native extraction indexing. And then we'll summarize everything at the end. So to start off with, we're going to talk about the use of keyword searching in Discovery. And most of this is pretty basic knowledge to most of you at this point, whether you're an attorney or a paralegal. The best thing you can do when you get a large dump of data is to do what's referred to as some early stage culling. And that will help you reduce the amount of documents you have right off the bat by using maybe a date range first. And then you can also put in some general keywords and enter in your custodians to get your document collection down right from the start. After that, you can get some more specific keywords and construct your search queries, and that will help you return some documents that are likely to be responsive. Maybe you're doing a first pass privilege review, so you're searching for very specific attorneys' names or email extensions. And right from the start, if you start finding documents that are relevant to upcoming depositions, or you know that they're relevant to deposition of the parties or entities, you can go ahead and assign these documents to those deponents or the companies that they work for to prepare for your depositions right away. It's always good practice to try to prepare early on so you're not replicating work that you've already done later on down the line when depositions actually do come up. And in that same vein, if you end up taking your case to trial, there's nothing wrong with going ahead and finding your key documents that you know will be the ones that keep coming up over and over again and likely would be introduced as evidence in trial. So if you can find a way to code for that as well, you might as well go ahead and get that out of the way from the get-go. So to do that, you'll want to start with your request for production, your discovery that's been propounded to you, or your subpoena. So you get your RFP or your subpoena duces tecum, and you'll put that into some type of keyword strategy. So you may take the date ranges that they ask for in the subpoena as your first part of your early stage cull, and they'll also have specific terms that they will list out in your RFPs that you can go ahead and put into your review platform. This is also the time that you're going to want to interview your document custodians. That could be maybe your client, that could be a medical records custodian. Ask them for what type of terminology they use in their industry as opposed to maybe what you're comfortable with. You might consider something a contract, whereas a custodian might think of that as an agreement, and they know that across the board we don't call these documents contracts, we call them agreements. So you might miss documents that you were searching for the word contract, but they might exist many times, but they're just called an agreement. And that goes into this idea of including jargon. So this is the industry or company subculture terms. Those could be abbreviations, acronyms that you might not be familiar with, but it's important for you to know them to make sure you are getting the best results. To include misspellings in your searching can be important because you might find that there is a word that's consistently misspelled, such as maybe there's a foreign language entity that's a party to your litigation and somebody on the other side consistently misspells that word. So by using fuzzy search, what that will do, you can put in the correct spelling of the word or maybe the incorrect spelling of the word. And if you have the fuzzy search option checked, it will allow you to account for any of those words that are being misspelled. Fuzzy search will enact an algorithm behind the scenes that will pull in words that are substantially similar to the word that you're looking for. So the pros of keyword searching is, first, is that it's fast. When you type in a keyword into your review platform, you're going to find that, especially compared to the old school method of a binder with sticky notes and highlighters, this is way faster than that, but it's much faster than even the linear document review inside of your review platform. You're getting right to the documents that you need to see without having to look through everything. Because it's so quick, it's also less expensive for your client, especially because you're putting in these keywords that are giving you results very quickly, whereas you or your associates or your paralegals would be spending a lot of time doing manual review, and not to mention the cost of some of these computer-assisted methodologies for technology-assisted review are much more expensive than just using keyword searching in your eDiscovery platform. Your keywords will be able to deliver high-quality results if you spend a lot of time carefully constructing your keyword terms and your strings, and make sure that you're testing them with a few different variations to make sure you're getting the best results. This also will help you avoid manual review errors or inconsistencies. So these results are computer generated, and there are some known human review errors like fatigue. Your comprehension will go down as you're reading, not to mention that if you have somebody reviewing your documents for you that maybe doesn't know the case as well as a more upper level partner or a more senior paralegal, they might miss something that is important to the case just simply because they don't know to look for it. There are some cons of keyword searching as well. You can find that your search would be over or under inclusive. And this is potentially a problem due to the fact that people do not carefully enough construct their keywords or their search strings. So when you get these junk results or you're missing good results, these are called false positives and false negatives. Because that's so important, another one of the cons is how difficult it is to create these good search terms. So to construct these good search terms, you're going to need to sit down with your review team. You're going to need to sit down with your custodians, your client, and get your first draft together. But it's going to take many drafts potentially of keywords to test them, different variations, and analyze your results to see what you may need to modify to get better results next time. You may have documents that are going to have non-searchable text. So obviously your results are only as good as the underlying searchable text. So ESI keyword collections and their review tools can miss text that a human reviewer might be able to see. So for instance, you have an old set of medical records that are scanned in, and the OCR quality is not good because these were maybe generated on a typewriter or they have a doctor's handwriting on them. If you or I are looking at the medical record, we'll be able to see that the person put a note on the document with their handwriting, or that it's an old typeface that was OCR'd incorrectly, so it's not generating a result. But I could look at it with my eyes and tell exactly what the document says. That would be an example of when the keyword searching could be problematic for you, but you would know based on the type of data that you have in your set whether you might run into that issue. And this goes into the last point, which is that some file types just can't be indexed. So there's little consistency in what files can be indexed across different databases. So we'll get into what exactly indexing is a little bit later on in the presentation, but for now, we'll talk about how to get your search a little bit more sharp. So the first thing you want to do is to reduce your false positives. These are your noise things that they're not related to your case. So the first thing you can do most basically is filter out unneeded file types. This will take some level of understanding about what type of documents you have or that you've collected from your custodians or your client, but you're able to filter these out by knowing some different document extensions. So I'm talking about computer program files or printer drives, things that you're just not going to need as you're reviewing documents for evidence. These are not going to be germane at all to anything that you'd ever need to produce to your other side. You can also use your Boolean modifiers, which we'll talk about here shortly, to limit your overly expansive searches. They'll easily reduce the number of documents and will also increase the relevance of what you're getting with your results. So if you include a and or an or a not, you're going to make sure that you're getting only the documents that you're interested in looking at and not the documents that maybe have one of the words that you're looking for, but it's really not related to anything having to do with the case at hand. So using your Boolean modifiers is going to be very powerful in getting your documents in order very quickly without just relying on the keywords. You have to test it using some other methodology. So your basic Boolean operators, like I mentioned, is going to be and, which will return both terms, so apples and oranges. It's going to return documents that have the word apple and the word orange in it. You're going to have or. That's going to give you at least one of them. So it'll give you a document that at least has apple or orange in it. Apple not orange will give you documents that only have the word apple in it and not the word orange, and so on. You have these parentheses can be used to separate or statements. This pre/n is going to find documents that have apple pre-5 orange. That will find documents that have the word apple within 5 words of the word orange. And then you have your wildcard characters. These vary across some platforms, but generally an asterisk will replace a letter in your search term, whereas the exclamation point will allow for a stemming search within your Boolean query, meaning that it will look for the ing, the different past, present tense of your word. You can also use your review platform to search for PII, or personally identifiable information. So those of you that practice in all of the courts, but especially the federal courts, know the importance of redacting this PII prior to doing your e-filing in the court. So a way that you can use wildcards and the Boolean operators like we talked about, the equal sign here can be used as a numerical wildcard. So you can search for things like social security numbers, credit card numbers, birthdays, and then you can find where those sequences of numbers exist and redact them prior to exchanging discovery or e-filing with the court. So you'll see here, this is an example of searching for the social security numbers. You have 3 different variations on the way that social security numbers are sometimes printed inside of a document. You have just with the spaces, without the spaces, and then with the hyphens or dashes. You can obviously also search for the term SSN or social security number, both of those in quotes, and those will give you good results. But to search for the numbers, they may be buried somewhere within a document depending on the type of files that you have. Using these wildcards is going to assist you in isolating those numerical sequences. And we'll look at an example here of how that works. So this is an example of how to search for phone numbers using that wildcard for the numerical sequence. So you'll see that they were using the 334 wildcards for looking for phone numbers. And this is an example of the Lexbe platform, how it will appear to you. If you're using our software, you will be able to see your hit here. You can see that this 713853 is coming up as a hit for phone number sequence. And there's 5,199 results that were generated by this wildcard string. I mentioned this a little bit before, but one of the most important parts of keyword searching is to test your results. You're going to need to examine the results that were returned. So to look at these things without reviewing them and maybe just blanket coding them all at once, you're going to get low quality results. You're either going to get a deficiency letter from your opposing counsel because you were giving them way too much stuff, or because they think that you missed something. If you don't test your results with different iterations of a word, you will not get good quality results. This plays into the next thing, sampling and looking for ways to limit your searches. You can do those queries with the Boolean function, like I mentioned. You can use wildcards. You can use the limiters. And you can always create more new keywords. You can say maybe you talk to your custodian and you were using the wrong word and you want to try some different variations of the word to see if you'll find or reduce the amount of documents that you're getting. We talked about this idea of the fuzzy search for finding things that are consistently misspelled, but the concept search is another very powerful tool you can use in your review platform. And the concept search is going to help you find synonyms of your word. If you search for the word rain, you're going to find the word precipitation. And again, the example that I used before, if you search for the word contract, you will also get the word agreement. So the concept search can be helpful to you if you are not familiar with the industry jargon and you couldn't get that from your custodian, or you are getting results that you didn't expect to get based on the use of a particular keyword. By using the concept search, you might find that they're just referring it to something in a different way than you were searching for it. So to improve the searchability in general, it's very important to understand your data collection. So you need to understand what the file types are. Are there any special issues with the data? Do you have a lot of zip files? Are they going to expand a lot into multiple documents? Do you have a lot of emails that are going to have attachments you need to keep together? And just keep in mind that not everything is ready to be indexed and searched right away. So you're going to need to consider that some of your data might need some pre-processing before you can get in and search it. And because of that fact, it's very, very important that you understand the software that you have that's going to be used for not only your data processing, but also your search. So that comes into this indexing idea that we mentioned. Indexing tools are going to create a database for files, and they're going to open the file, scan it, and store it in a specific content, and it's going to be based on the documents, the data's location within the document. So if an indexing tool can't open a file to see the specific form of the data inside of it, it won't be able to index it, and therefore it won't be searchable. So when you load your documents into your processing or review platform, several things happen. The list that I'm about to go over here is specific to the Lexbe search engine and the Lexbe processing, but it may not apply to all platforms. So again, you'd have to check with your own personal vendor to see what your documents are going to do when they are loaded into the platform. So the first thing that's going to happen is if you have archive or container files, those would be zip files, RAR files, or for emails, they would be a PST or an OST, or an MBOX if you're using a Mac computer. And expansion just means if you have one zip file, you have to consider that there may be 10,000 files within that one zip file. So when you load your zip file into your platform, it's going to expand to 1,000 files or 10,000 files, whatever the count may be. File repair will take place at this step. You'll have your metadata extraction and fielding. Lexbe has the ability during auto processing for this metadata extraction. It will pull out the to, from, CC, BCC, date last modified, date sent, author, etc. All of those fields will be pulled from your emails or from your Word documents and Excel documents to the extent that it exists. Your MD5 hash code will be generated. That's used for deduplication when you need to run that across your files to get your collection size down. You'll find the system file that we talked about, the program files in DNIS, that will help you get rid of those junk files that you don't need for your review. You'll be able to run your deduplication after your processing is finished. It will preserve the email parent family, parent and child relationship, meaning the email and all attachments will be kept together. You can choose your time zone for your emails so that you know if the person was sitting on the East Coast and writing their emails, the documents will be processed with the East Coast time zone, so you're not confused about when the time that somebody was doing something. You can assign your custodians at this point so that you'll be able to filter down to those documents later on to see where they came from. And it's going to go through, in the Lexbe platform, it's going to go through both native text extraction and an OCR of the images. So at that point, it's going to index the extracted and OCR text. And we're going to talk about what that means coming up here in this next part of the presentation. So what is an index and why is it important to you? So an index, I like to think of it as in college, you're in your biology class and you're going to have an exam coming up. And the exam covers a lot of different topics, but one of them is mitochondria. That's a very basic biology term. It's going to come up a lot. But if you're just scanning every page in your thick textbook for the word mitochondria, it's going to take a long time. So what do? You go to the back of your textbook and you look up the word mitochondria and you see every page that that term is mentioned on. An index in your review platform or your processing platform is going to work very similarly. So it's going to scan the document at the time of processing, and it's going to make a note inside of the database of where those words exist. And it's going to make a notation somewhere that when you go to search for that word later on, instead of having to scan every single document again every time you put in that search term, it has an index that it can go to, and it says, I know that this word already exists on these pages, and here are those results. So without the index, it's going to scan it, every document inside of your whole case, And that's going to take both a lot of time and a lot of computing power on your own vendor's part. And most of these e-discovery engines are going to be able to also get rid of the noise or the stop words, and you're going to be able to get your results much, much faster that way as well. And this is all based on the index. So now we're going to talk about OCR index versus a text-based index. OCR is something that most of you have probably heard, but maybe don't understand what it means. So the OCR is an index that receives the document like it was a scanned image, and it will go over all of the words in the document, and it will be able to pick out the characters. And you'll see here that it distinguishes light and dark patterns that determines the characters that will match various alphanumeric symbols. So this is not always 100% accurate, and again, that goes back to what we were talking about with these medical records especially. So it depends on the quality of the image. So again, if you have something that's a very old document that's been scanned in, you may have seen in your past searches that you have maybe the name Stephen. You search for the name Stephen, you're not getting any hits, so you know that that's not correct because the defendant's name is Stephen Smith. But if you enact a fuzzy search, you might find that the OCR was pulling in the word Stephen, but it was making the S a $sign, for instance. So that's where the OCR can be a little bit weak, and you're going to have to play with your results if you have an OCR, exclusively OCR-based index. And that's where the advanced search practices will help mitigate some of those accuracy issues, such as the $sign versus S, exclamation point for I, those sort of things. So OCR stands for optical character recognition, and they're generated from the image of the document. So native files, that would be your emails, all their attachments, your Excel spreadsheets, your Word documents, they're going to be converted to paginated image files, and then OCR will be applied to make that text searchable. So a TIFF production with no extracted text, a TIFF production would be an image base, so there's no text that's available. The OCR would make that TIFF production searchable. So the conversion software will use what's called a print driver approach, and that's going to virtually image what would have been physically printed. So if you were able to print it in your office, it's going to virtually make an image of that. It'll be available to you to search. So the weakness, besides just the basic, $sign versus S, I versus exclamation point, is that this OCR does not take into account data that is not visible by just looking at it. So I'm talking about headers, footers, notes, track changes, comments, highlighted text, any hidden Excel sheets, or any hidden text inside of a document, or any of these print selections or applied filters. OCR will not be able to detect if there is a hidden Excel sheet that maybe contains information that's important to you. OCR cannot search for a header or a footer. And any kind of track change. So you can imagine, being attorneys and people in the legal industry, how many versions of a document do you go through before you make it final? If you're only uploading one document that has 7 versions and all you have is an OCR-based index, you're only going to get that final version of the document. So you're not going to see that somebody on the second version said, this is bad, this proves that he's guilty. You're never going to see that note because the OCR index just can't do that. So we'll go to this text-based index. What is that? This is where text is extracted from a native document, not an image, but the actual native document itself. So this is going to be any text that's typed into the document, which includes those hidden fields of comments, the different versions, the hidden sheets, the blind copy fields of an email. Basically, the text would have to be typed into the document and not appear on an embedded image. So a very good example of this is to think of, if you have a picture of a stop sign, you drag and drop it on a Word document. The picture of a stop sign would not allow the word stop to be added to the index in the text-based index, because that is not something that was typed, it's a picture. So conversely to the OCR, the data that can be missed with just the text-based index is any non-text file, so scan document, embedded text, objects, graphs, those sort of visuals won't be indexed. So different native extraction methods can vary in their ability to recognize certain types of text as well. So let's get down to brass tacks. What's the pros and cons of OCR versus text-based? The pros of an OCR are that you can search embedded images, charts, budgets, any scanned document. And the cons are that you miss those hidden Excel cells, any comments, track changes, and the blind copy field. Well, let's look at the pros for text-based. The Excel hidden cells are available. The comments are available. Track changes are available. the CC field is available. And the cons are that you can't search charts, budgets, and scan documents. So you can see the pros of the OCR are the cons of the text and vice versa. So they're both very powerful, but which one would you choose? What's more important to you as you're doing your document review? I think in a perfect world, most of you would say both, or a combination of both, or ideally both at the same time. Here's an example of when this OCR is not going to be a good choice for you. So we're in a search engine here inside of our review platform, and we're looking for the name Joe Connor. This is the Excel. This is the native version of the Excel when we're looking at it. And this is inside of the Lexbe platform. This is what our document viewer looks like. This PDF view here is going to show you the OCR version of this document. If you search the word Joe Connor does not exist on this document. So does it exist somewhere else? I don't know. We only have the OCR, so we have to rely on the fact that Joe Connor is not in this Excel sheet. So we're going to move on. We don't have another option unless you also have this text-based index available to you where you type in the word Joe Connor. You're able to go and see that the native version, the text extracted version, does have the name Joe Connor, and it's actually inside of a hidden sheet called Personnel that you're able to find because you have this text-based index available to you. So the native document here shows the hidden sheet where Joe Connor appears. If you only had the OCR index available to you, you would never know that this existed. So you'll see here that this is again inside the Lexbe platform by searching that document and looking for the name Joe Connor. You'll see here the HTML tab represents the extracted text from a native document, and this is how we were able to find out that Joe Connor did exist on a hidden sheet. So you'll see that the OCR index completely missed the hidden fields and the pages like this one. The next example is going to show where the text-based index or the native extraction is not always the best choice. So here we have a nice chart. This is an embedded image, so someone maybe took a screen grab or cut and pasted this chart from somewhere else and then pasted it inside of a PowerPoint slide. We search for the term NW alum smelters. So again, we're inside of the Lexbe interface over here to the right that's displaying the text-based index extraction. And you'll see the only things that are extracted are updated LR adjustments, significant decrease in conservation, and those would have been the only two things that were actually typed into the document. Therefore, they would be able to be extracted in native text. So you can see easily here in this case that there are a lot of other things on this slide that maybe would have generated a hit and would have created some text over here on the right side. So all the text that appears in the PowerPoint slide is on an embedded image, so it's not readable by our text-based index. So we'll go here and we'll be able to look at the OCR index. It's able to lift the text off the document, so you can see here that NW alum smelters does exist in the document. However, it was not being pulled out of the native text extraction. It's being pulled out of the OCR text extraction. So the extracted text-based indexes will miss these embedded or attached images. Most of the time, you either have one or the other. Most offer a single index, so you either have to choose from OCR or a text. But as you've seen from our examples, you can tell what you might miss if you only have one of those available to you. Conversely, some platforms do offer both the OCR and the text index, but you have to search separately. So that basically doubles your work. You're going to have to see documents that you've already reviewed and maybe coded because they were a hit on both the OCR and the native text extraction. So that just doubles the amount of work and time for you. Moving on from that, there's another type of indexing that's important, and we sort of touched on it during the processing part of what happens to your documents at ingestion into a platform. But the metadata index is going to give you information that is going to be extracted from your file that, again, is not easily seen in all cases by looking at a document, but it's going to be very important to your review. So these will include the original document title. It may not be what the document is called when you receive it, but it will be able to tell you what was that document called prior to you getting the production from your opposing counsel. It's also going to record the date and the time sent and the date and the time received for emails, the sender, recipient, CC, as well as the blind copy. It's going to show you the date a document was last modified, and it will also preserve the file extension and the file type. So that will help you analyze the type and the quantity of the amount of ESI produced. So you could filter on how many emails do I have in this production, how many PDFs do I have in this production. We talked a little bit about translating documents. This can be a very complex task inside of your litigation. As you imagine, it's very important to be accurate and to have quick results as well. You don't have a lot of time to spend going through each document individually and translating. So you have a few choices that you have to make if you find you're involved in a case with foreign language documents. Are you going to use machine translation? This isn't always perfect. You may get a strange translation, but it's more affordable than, let's say, human translation, which is the next choice. This is very good, but it's expensive. You're paying for the person's time in addition to their skill. You can hire some foreign language staff to do your search. Again, that can be very good, but it's expensive. Or you can create foreign language search terms and have only the responsive documents translated. So this is a little bit more affordable just because the document size of the data you need to review is smaller. But again, if you're needing to make something more affordable, this is a good option for you. So based off of these four choices, you're going to be asking yourself, what might I miss? Or how much money am I wasting? And tying your translated documents into an original or native version of a document for production, it usually would have to be done manually. So this is a complicated issue. So now we're going to talk about this idea of a concatenated index. We understand the native extraction, the OCR extraction. We talked a little bit about translating documents, and we talked about the metadata index. So the concatenated index is going to combine two or more indexes. LXP does this all at the same time. So you don't have to worry about running into a problem where all you have available for you is an OCR index, or all you have available to you is a text extraction. LXP gives you both simultaneously, and this is what we refer to as our Uber index. So to blend the OCR and the text indexes into one searchable database is this idea of the concatenated index. So regardless of whether the text appeared in a hidden field, so those text-based things that we talked about with the Excel document example, or an embedded image, which is OCR-based, that's our PowerPoint example with the chart, your document will be responsive to search. You're not going to have to run into issues where you're worried about what type of search index do I have? Did I get the best results? LXP has this Uber index, and that blends those two, OCR and text-based index, together. It also includes the translation and metadata index into the Uber index. So you'll be able to apply advanced Boolean search, and it will pull text from either OCR or text-based, and you'll get better results that way. If you have documents that need to be translated, that's also something that LXP can do for you as an added feature. And once those documents are translated, they can be searched in either the language, so you can search in English if you're translating to English, or you can search in the language that the document came over. So let's say if it's Spanish, if you search the Spanish word, you're going to get a hit on the Spanish and the English word. And if you search on the English word, you're going to get the same results. And all the search expanders can be applied to those translated documents as well. So the fuzzy and concept search that we talked about before. So the concatenated index, we're going to start with an example here of this PowerPoint slide to illustrate what blending all the available indexes together will do for you. So if you have only one index, you're going to miss information, especially on a document like this. This is going to contain an embedded image. It's also going to contain text that will need to be extracted. And it's going to create a problem if you only have one or the other. But the concatenated index, or in LXP's case, the Uber index, is going to pull all the text on the embedded image and in the comments, and it's going to pull it into one searchable database. So here, you'll see where the Uber index will pick up hidden field text and embedded image text, that the tabs will allow you to toggle between the different views of the document. So here in the center, we have the PDF version. That's the normalized PDF that allows for the OCR index. The text tab that you see to the right of the PDF example is going to show you all of the OCR text that's available. So this is all the text that's searchable based off of the OCR index. To the left, you're going to see the HTML tab displayed, and that's going to show you all of the text that's available to be searched based on the native extraction. So you can see that by using a concatenated or our Uber index, you'll be able to get the best results because you're going to have access to the native extraction here on the left, as well as the OCR text over here on the right to search across, and not just one or the other. The Uber index offers this multi-language search result. So if you find that you have a subset of documents that need to be translated, you give them to Lexbe, we will translate them for you, and you will have a translated version of the document available to you, as well as the original document, which would be in the native language. So in this sense, let's say you're looking for the word a horse. This document has been translated. So if you search this document, if you search this database for the term a horse, the document's going to be identified as a hit with caballo, and it's going to also find the word horse. This will be your hit based on the translated document, and this is going to be your hit based on the document in the native language. And that's possible based on Lexbe's Uber index and the translation index available inside of it. So the translation tab here is displayed a little bit better for you to see. This PDF tab is going to be the normalized PDF that we've talked about a little bit before that uses the OCR index. This is in Spanish. This is your native, your original document. Lexbe has done the translation for you. So a translated tab appears in the document viewer, so you can toggle between translated, the English version, and the foreign language on the PDF view if you want to. And you'll be able to easily compare the two. You can see what it said in Spanish, and right next to it, you can look in and see the translated version of the document. So you can easily toggle back and forth. So now that we've talked about all the different types of indexes and what's available to you, you might be asking yourself, what might I be missing that I didn't know I was missing before I understood what an index is? Again, all of the things that I described with the Uber index are specific to Lexbe. And this idea of the concatenated index is something that I don't know if other platforms have. You'd have to check with your own vendors based on that. You have to make sure that your platform receives and indexes metadata in a way that's searchable. If you can't search across your metadata, you won't be able to look for things like the date last modified or the person who last modified it, which can be very important in various types of legal cases. And as we just talked about here recently, the foreign language documents add another level of the complexity. So will your platform offer auto language detect, which is how we were able to translate that Spanish document into English and search for the term horse? And will the platform be able to pull the original and the translated version together, or will you have to choose from keeping the original in your system or only having the translated version, which could create problems if your opposing counsel or your court order requires you to provide a native document. So in summary, the quality of your search index will directly affect the outcome of your case. If you do not have an accurate index and you do not have good search terms to go with it, you will not get good results, and you will be missing things that your opposing counsel may find that you were not able to find because of the limitations of your software. These foreign language documents are going to make things more complicated for you, and if you know that you are going to have foreign language documents, it's best to find out ahead of time if your platform is set up to receive these documents properly and process them in a way that will help you get through them. And finally, the Lexbe Uber index will help you ensure that you don't miss any evidence by capturing all the text, all the embedded information on an image through the OCR indexing, or the type information, that's the text-based index. And it will also pull in your metadata and translated text into one single searchable index. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar. If you have any questions about what I talked about today, I'd be happy to answer them. I also have a more basic search webinar that I did in the fall. If you'd like to access that, you can find that on our website with the Lexbe eDiscovery webinar series, or you can reach out to me directly or to Frank, or email your webinar questions to webinars@lexbe.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erin. That was a great presentation with some really useful information. Again, Erin is a member of our eDiscovery Technical Services team. Lexbe platform was built to help empower firms administer their own e-discovery projects if they choose to, all the way from upload through production. The platform can be completely DIY. If you do need help, however, whether it be technical or litigation support, Aaron and our team of experts can step in at any point of your project to offer their expertise. That flexibility and ability to scale to meet your firm's needs is what we think sets LexB apart from other applications and makes us the killer app that your law firm needs to work with. I will ask one quick final polling question. Would you like a demonstration of the LexB platform? As you answer that question, I just wanted to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. After this webinar, we'll be making a recording and streaming version, an MP3 podcast, and a PDF of the slide deck available. If you have any questions or would like a follow-up consultation or demonstration of the software and discuss how it can help you manage the complex document-intensive cases that you face, please contact me. You can see my contact information on the screen. With that, thanks again, everybody, for attending the LexB webinar, and thanks again to Aaron for hosting. Please stick around after the webinar. There's a brief survey, and we're greatly appreciative if you take the time to do that. Thank you.